Few missions matter more than helping people live healthier, happier, and longer lives. Yet turning that mission into reality at scale is one of the greatest challenges of our time. In this podcast, I speak with the people who are taking that challenge head on, the health entrepreneurs who have dedicated their personal and professional lives to creating maximal impact, the true Impact Junkies. My name is Daniel. Join me as we talk through their stories behind the mission, the wins, the losses, the challenges, and the breakthroughs, with the hope of inspiring more people to join the mission and the health revolution. Today's guest is James Middleton, a man who has impacted thousands of lives within the 6 years that he's been a health entrepreneur, and also a person who has been an inspiration for many others within this space. Welcome to Impact Junkies. James, welcome.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here, brother.
Yeah, finally in Copenhagen.
Finally in Copenhagen. How are you enjoying it?
Great. It only took me to move to America to fly to Copenhagen.
Circle all the way back to Europe.
I was so close in England. I don't know why I never came over. It's a short flight.
But hopefully it won't be the last time that we have you here. Definitely. You have been a health entrepreneur, an online coach for a bit over 6 years now, which in this space is quite a journey, right? Because this form of coaching people online didn't exist 9-10 years ago. So you're an OG.
Yeah.
With the wealth of experience.
You could call it that. I still feel like, though I've been doing it for 6 years, it still feels so new.
Right.
It's a crazy business that way. And I still feel like we're just getting started. I know that's a cliche and everyone says that, but I genuinely mean it. You know, I think I've learned so much in these 6 years and so many things have happened. But as with anything, so much has also shifted in the fitness space and health space. So it's always really exciting to keep up with all that.
And you've had a huge impact along the way. So I just wanted to think about that for a second. I mean, when people talk about the impact that you've had on their lives, on their fitness and health journeys, what do you hope that they say? What do you imagine they say?
A simple line of, "You've truly changed my life," it goes a long way. That hits hard because you see, and I coach mainly women, you see these women from the very start and you hear them and you hear their struggles. And it takes a lot to be vulnerable at that stage with really a coach who, they of course have been following you on social media, but you're still a stranger to them. You know, they're a stranger to me and my team, but opening up from the start like that takes a lot of courage, but it really helps you as a coach. The better you know your client, pretty much everything going on in life, the more you can help them. And whilst we're not counselors and therapists, you sometimes fall into that category a little bit.
You're close and it's intimate.
Exactly. And it helps. But that, when you've been on the journey with the client, let's say for 6 months, and you've been through the ups and downs with them and you've seen the great things and the struggles and the challenges and the times they've almost quit, it truly is. And it's like the example of paying someone a compliment in the street. If someone says to you, "Oh, I love your jacket, man," and then they disappear and you never see them again, that compliment sits with you the whole day.
Yes.
And it doesn't take a lot. So when a client says to us, "You've truly changed my life," or "This has become incredibly positive in my life," it really, really, sometimes us coaches, we need a bit of, confirmation that things are working, we're doing the right thing, and it goes a long way, and it just puts a fire in your belly and grounds you as to, this is why I do what I do.
Amazing. Let me add a bit of context to that, on the lives that you've changed, because we spoke together a couple of months ago. And in that conversation, we spoke about that it can be hard to sometimes, zoom out and actually grasp how much change you've actually created. So I looked at some of the numbers.
Oh, no.
All right. Yeah. they're good. Don't worry about that. So over the past 6 years, James, you've coached more than 5,000 women to improve their health. And in that time, your clients have collectively lost over 5.2 tons of body weight. They've walked more than 2.3 billion steps. And if we put end to end all of your clients' coaching, you've delivered 1,800 cumulative years of coaching.
Wow.
What do you think about that?
I need those stats from my Instagram. That's insane.
That's insane, isn't it?
We focus a lot on steps, so I'm glad that those are high for that.
2.3.
That's incredible.
2.3 billion.
Wow.
And for me, well, that's impact.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
And back when I started on the gym floor and I was coaching clients one-to-one, which I would go back to in a heartbeat. I love that. Obviously, that's the trade, right? But that was the point where I was maxed out on my days coaching people, and it's exhausting doing 8-9 hours of one-to-one coaching because you're giving your energy, you're lifting up weights. It's a lot. But that was the turning point where I thought, gosh, I love doing this, but how can I impact more people? And then obviously the conversation came up with Linus. It was actually a friend who recommended speaking to you guys and my cam back then that started that whole journey of being able to still do what I love, but on a much bigger scale.
And we'll dive a lot more into that story.
Yeah.
First, I want to zoom out just a little bit because you have quite an interesting perspective. I mean, on your young life, I can say. But when looking back, when we've spoken before, you've spoken about your life in phases. Mm-hmm. Give me the bird's eye view on these phases that you spoke about.
The phases. So the first phase was probably carefree / unsure phase of my life. Okay. Graduating university. I played a lot of rugby growing up, high level rugby. That was what I wanted to ultimately do, professional rugby for my whole life, but that didn't happen. And I then went into working 9 to 5, for a business in sports marketing, which was great. It was fun. I got to experience that whole nature of being in a company and
what do you call that phase?
Working with other people. That I would say that was the I'm not going to call it unsure phase. That's just the learning phase, right? You're figuring out what really it is that makes you tick and what you want to do. Alongside with the carefree James of every weekend going out and getting absolutely hammered, drinking alcohol as we do in the UK on our weekends. And so those two things coexisted for a period of time. And then I got to a point when I was working one day. Well, actually, it wasn't just a single point, but it had started growing this feeling of sitting at my desk, doing this work that wasn't fulfilling me, being told that I could only go for lunch for half an hour and I had to come back, and this restrictive way of living. And I had this burning desire inside of me, this voice just saying, you're not made for this. Like, you're made for something bigger. You have something bigger to give. And I don't know where that voice came from, but it was there, and it got more and more powerful the longer I stayed in my 9 to 5. Okay. So then the kind of moment came where the risk of going off and doing what I truly loved, which was health and fitness, what I was passionate about. And I think a lot of that stemmed from playing rugby. Right. The rugby background of being on a nutrition plan since I was 15, lifting weights since I was 15. I just loved it, and I was always interested in it.
And that's what you wanted to do at that time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Your
I
goal
loved
was
it.
To go pro?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, rugby was incredible. It was so much fun and everything that came with it. I'm glad I didn't go professional now because I see the size of the guys running around on the rugby pitch. We don't wear pads like they do in America playing American football. It's just crunch.
It's a different game.
And I see the hits they put in. I'm just glad I don't have to deal with that. But that was where the passion and the fire came from, because I was in the office and every day my colleagues would come up to me and say, James, I'm eating, this and this, but can you tell me why I'm not seeing this, or I'm training this? And every day people were coming to me, and I thought, I love talking to people about this. I love helping people about this. And then one day I just decided I'm gonna get my personal training qualification and just see what happens. Now, I went on a TV show back then, which was a lot of fun. That was also, I think, me thinking, let's see what comes of this opportunity, and just, we'll throw a ball at the wall and see if it sticks.
At least it sounds like a totally different and fun opportunity compared to being stuck in your 9 to 5.
When you get asked to go to the middle of South Africa to film for 3 weeks, no contact with the outside world, and you're competing in all these challenges against, women and it was a man versus women thing. I mean, that was an awesome opportunity, you know, and I thought, why not? So did that. And I left with a bit of a following from that, but not, you know, it was 15-year-old girls maybe, so it wasn't conducive to
not necessarily what we would call a relevant following to grow a business on.
But that, when I came off that show, that was the line in the sand where I said, right, now I'm going to take the personal training route seriously and start coaching. And I started at F45, coaching classes, just doing tons of classes, and because I wanted to make, you know, I had to make some money doing that. And, you know, I probably shouldn't admit this, but started like poaching clients from F45, which was very much against the contract. But, you know, you got to break some rules along the way, and started then building up my one-to-one business and coaching people privately. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. Could work my own hours. I was doing this though alongside working in my 9-to-5 job. So I was kind of, I was a bit naughty. I would say to my company, I'm going for meetings, and then I would just coach people in this gym, and did that for as long as I could. Luckily the company ended up going bust, so that was a blessing. That was
put a little out of office in the calendar.
Yeah.
And then
probably went bust because of guys like me were just not showing up.
But what did that time on the gym floor teach you that you feel is important?
Communication with clients, understanding that people work in different ways, people respond to different methods of feedback. Some like you just beasting them, other people like it, like the intricate details of why they're doing something to help them understand. I think definitely the technical side of training, what works for some people, what works for other people, what a lot of people generally have in common that they struggle with from a training perspective, what a lot of people enjoy. So, and I genuinely think these days there's online coaches popping up everywhere, right? Sometimes people have big followings and they go, I'm going to be an online coach, and they don't get a qualification and they don't have the experience of the gym floor. And I honestly think that that is the bread and butter of becoming a good coach. I genuinely think everyone should spend a decent amount of time on a gym floor working with real people.
Because there's a craft to it, right?
Of course, like anything, you know, anything before you scale and go big, you have to look at salesmen, for example. I mean, it's not what everyone does, but so many of these guys who are incredible salesmen, they started off knocking on doors, right? That's the raw craft of sales back in the day. And so I think that's a really important part of becoming a good coach. And I'm glad, and like I said, I would go back to that any day. Yeah. I think it's great. But it wasn't conducive to the ideas that I had about helping more people. But so still you
had those ideas at that point?
I did. After about a year, you also as a personal trainer, you get pretty close to burnout because you're trying to maximize, you're trying to make as much money as you can. You only have a finite amount of hours in the day, and you can only charge people so much. You know, even if you're charging people, which I was at the time, 200, 250 pounds an hour.
Which is a solid
amount, right? But my whole life, Monday to Sunday, was in a gym, on the gym floor. I didn't really have a social life because I was getting up early. I couldn't focus on anything else like content or anything else to grow a business because I was just churning. But it was a necessary period of doing it, and I was exhausted. You know?
Plus, there's those hours in between clients, right? Where you have a client,
then
there's
traveling,
a 1.5 hour break or whatever,
exactly.
And you're not getting paid for that necessarily.
No, the traveling around and but it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and I met some really interesting people. And I got to a point where you can choose who you work with, really, and you have successful people come to you who obviously have disposable income, so you can charge more money, and then you get rid of the clients who can't pay as much money because you want to maximize your time. So even just learning about that side of the business was huge.
So not just the craft on the floor, but also potentially building a bit more business acumen,
exactly,
as it would be.
And managing, because for the first time ever, you're doing your own finances, your own taxes, charging your own prices, paying rent, all these things that sometimes working for another company automatically kind of will get done for you, and suddenly you're responsible for your tax, and
for better or worse,
you're like, wait, I need an accountant, and then, you know, all that stuff starts to snowball. Which again is why I think it's so necessary before you start moving into having an app in the online coaching world that you understand the sort of maybe the basics of pricing tiers and charging people And the personable skill is just so key.
So, I mean, it sounds like you were quite successful as a personal trainer. You did well by yourself, but you were still your own bottleneck, which is the case when working on the floor. So where's your mind going to? Are you aware of the opportunity of moving this online, or what does that look like? Not
really. Back then, I wasn't. I'd heard of a few companies, Trainer Eyes, True Coach, the guys that had been around for a while, and I can say this because I'm with Linus, have probably stayed pretty basic and haven't really developed with the times. But those were platforms that I'd heard of just talking to other coaches. So at the very, very start, I did download True Coach, picked up a couple of clients on Instagram because I was posting a little bit on there, but I wasn't really going for it. I was just saying, hey, I can write you a training program and we don't have to do one-to-one. But then obviously for me, being paid £250 an hour, I would never advertise the online coaching to my clients because that would go from $250 an hour to £50 a month just for a training program.
Right. So it requires scale.
Yeah. But then I did start to see a few people coming through Instagram initially with that platform, but very basic platform, just doing training. And I thought, this is all right, actually, because I can now sit at home drinking a coffee and coach people and write training programs. Cool. But that was the level for a period of time that I was at where I thought, this is nice, but I hadn't doubled down on that yet. And then I spoke to my friend back then, who was a personal trainer as well, who said, oh, have you heard of this company called Linus? They help you with the nutrition side of things, check-ins, they have an app, you can do your training plans. It's the whole thing. And I thought, gosh, that does sound good. And then immediately had a meeting with one of the cams who was interested because I think she could tell just speaking to her. She knew I was hungry. And I think as a coach, you have to be ambitious and hungry to grow an online business. I think a lot of coaches sometimes come into it who join Linus or whatever, and they think that what you bring is going to build their success, which is entirely not true. You have to work and you have to put in the effort into all these different pillars of coaching, marketing, sales, whatever. And then the Linus team are there to help build that up, right? And it all works as a team, but you can't expect the Linus team to build, because you're the face of the business. You are the face, you're why people come to you. So you have to be every day posting, every day talking to your clients and be in the thick of it for quite some time to see any kind of real growth. And I think sometimes probably people think, oh, I'll be an online coach. That looks great. James gets to work wherever in the world and he makes great money. Dreamy. But people have no idea how hard and how long it takes to truly get to that level. There's
actual effort. So was that something you had to learn or realize, or did you have the determination and work?
No, I had the work. I think from the offset, I had the get-go. I was just so hungry when I was 24 and I was sitting in that office, hating what I was doing, not earning much money, getting drunk every weekend, I dreamed about a number. I did the classic, if I earn this amount of money, I'll be happy. I think it was 120,000 or 130,000. That to me, it's a lot of money. But that was my dream. I was like, if I can do that and I can make that a year doing personal training, I'll be the happiest man in the world forever. So I'm not afraid to admit this, that like everyone, you want to be successful, you want to earn good money. And that was a driver for me at the start. But I was more so just hungry to make it work and see how much I could put in to be successful for myself. And I luckily was raised in a family where my dad came from nothing and made a success of himself. And I think playing rugby really teaches you the discipline, the determination, the grind. I was fortunate enough to launch my business with Linus literally at the time of COVID. So Thank goodness everything was shut. I was in my house working 18-hour days for probably a year, just doing content, live workouts, check-ins, sales, doing everything. Just
So it was like
work. All it was.
a perfect storm of coming from a high-level sports background, growing up with a parent who's an entrepreneur, and then timing, right?
Yeah.
So, but talk to me about we haven't spoken a lot about your social media development, because you got some following from the TV show, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, you're a person who's often used as an example of, having the right target audience and speaking to them,
right.
and so on. So how did you build
Daniel,
that?
my content, I'm almost embarrassed about what it was, but I think you can't be doing social media for this long and not look back and think,
of course,
what was I doing? I mean, it was also the era where TikTok was blowing up over COVID, and it was all these dance videos. I was dancing in my kitchen. I was doing all this stuff that was very, very questionable. My content was all over the place. I was talking about, eating broccoli and the importance of, vegetables in your diet. Then the next day I was dancing naked in my kitchen, and then I was doing impressions and then voiceovers, and it was just like
all over the place.
All over the place. But I was gaining followers, probably, but the wrong kind of followers. People who were here for the entertainment, the funny stuff, the dancing videos, and I would sprinkle the fitness on there. But I started gaining clients because I did talk about the fitness side of things. So it was actually at the time an okay combination of just gaining followers, but mostly the wrong followers, but some of them were interested in fitness. Whereas if I was to change anything and go back now, I would probably make it more fitness content from the offset.
But you learned along the way.
Right, you have to.
But now in COVID time, you have all the time in the world to dedicate to making content, to focusing on your online business.
Yeah.
There's some type of market demand, right? Because the gyms are closed. And so tell me about that time.
That was,
and
that's where I have no problem admitting that I got lucky in that sense. I'm not going to sit here and say that everything was just because of me and my hard work and the leanest team stuff. That there was an element of luck when I launched that business, when people came online. But I also capitalized on the fact that now millions of people are going to be at home with no access to gyms. They can't leave their house, wanting to stay in shape, which is why I did live workouts every single day. I had hundreds of people joining my workouts every morning, was collaborating with other coaches doing these live workouts. I knew that people were going to now be on their phones a lot more whilst they're at home, bored, trying to kill time, posting on social media every single day, workout videos, nutrition tips, how to stay fit and healthy in the four walls of your house, this kind of stuff. And I really just doubled down on that hard and grew a fair amount of followers in that period during COVID, which was great. And when I launched with Leanest, things were picking up quite quickly, got to 50 clients pretty quickly in the grand scheme of things, then 100 clients, 200 clients, and everything was really good. But the work that went on behind it, like if I was to talk to a coach right now, it's serious work. Yeah. It's serious work. You can't just post a few times a week and then expect clients to come pouring in and everything work. Like it is relentless, which is why a lot of people, I think, either do this and then do this, or they do this and they burn out and they can't do it anymore. You have to have a bit of character to, I think, stay in this business and keep performing.
And because at this point, you're doing more or less everything by yourself, right?
Yeah.
In the first while, you're doing sales, you're doing, handling your clients. Talk to me about that ecosystem.
A lot of learning at the start. Again, luckily, and I can't emphasize this enough, thank goodness I had my key account manager back then who was a second voice, a second opinion, who I could bounce ideas off, who gave me some guidance along the way, because whilst I was learning a hell of a lot by myself, from doing my first sales call to sending out my first nutrition plan to doing my first check-in and to filming content to editing it to posting it, the whole shebang, to making sure that I'm not, getting done for tax fraud. It's all these pillars, but it's very overwhelming at the start because you're just juggling so many different things and there's so many balls up in the air. But it really did help from the start having those meetings with my CAM and being that voice and, like I said, that support from the start, because I think that definitely helped accelerate things, because it also allowed me to focus on what I was good at, which was making content, entertaining people, and then of course the coaching.
And so now when you have, usually for a coach who's spent their time on the floor, right, you probably quite have a high level of integrity with the product you deliver and how you deliver. And with that type of growth comes a need to get a bit more help.
Yeah, and that was really hard to let go of doing everything yourself.
Yeah.
And every business owner goes through that, where you have to start giving away responsibility and delegating. So hard. It took me such a long time. Even when I started hiring coaches, and I've been very fortunate, I've had my first coach who I hired is still with me today.
Amazing.
She's unbelievable. She's called Alex and she's our head coach. I actually used to coach her one-to-one. She used to be a one-to-one client.
So she's been along for quite a journey.
Yeah. So she was a client of mine, but she was also a personal trainer, but reached out for coaching, and then she applied for the role at the start, and she's been incredible. But even at the start, giving away that responsibility, she would come to me with questions that a client asked, or what do you say to this? What do you say to this? And I would just send her text to send back. And then I realized I need to tell her, hey, I trust you with what you want to say to this client. I trust you with how you want to handle it. You don't need to message me all the time, because it was taking up too much of my time, not being able to do other things. But that giving away responsibility piece and trusting the people who are working for you, it was definitely a challenge. And then obviously the more coaches that you bring on board, the more responsibility you're giving away. In the hiring process as well, at the start, I was hiring coaches who were just basically duplicates of me, which is also not what you want. You want coaches of different skills and talents, some maybe more nutrition specific, some more training specific, some more women focused, some with more of a medical background. You want different people in your business, because if everyone's the same, it's going to be very one-dimensional.
So you have to learn that the hard way, I guess.
Yeah,
because you can't
hiring
create several copies of James. It'll never really work
in any
out.
business, you need different skill sets. So that was also a learning curve. But so important that you hire the right people. And I think as well, really looking after your team. For me, it's been, as I see with this company, Linus, your business is only as good as the people running it. Your coaching business is only as good as your clients. So again, we would have difficult clients causing issues, headaches. And at the start, you're just trying to please them. You're just bowing down to them, whatever we can do for you. And then I realized, no, if 10, 20% of our clients are giving us 80, 90% of the headaches, get rid of those clients. Be a business that you're not afraid to say, hey, look, this isn't working between us. Because you also have to make sure that your team's happy, your clients are happy, and then you have to be able to stand up to clients and say, I'm sorry, this isn't working on our terms. Because it's true, it has to be a two-way partnership, coaching. So again, that was telling my coaches, hey, if someone's being a nightmare, I don't care how much money they're paying, just tell them it's not working.
I think it's an interesting perspective you brought up before, also about comparative advantage, right? Find people who can add to the team with different skill sets than you have yourself. Because actually, despite the challenges of building a team, it suddenly can become a selling point, right? You have a capacity in the team that you don't have time to acquire yourself, right? Take a new education or do whatever. But you can have someone who can actually take care of specific challenges for clients and so on.
Yeah, and you need some like big leaders in your team. You need the more quiet, like reserved people. You can't have just big egos. If you just hire all big egos, everyone is just, clashing and it's just too much. You need to find some kind of balance, which I then started looking for when we were doing the hiring processes and stuff. And it's funny because in a business, I think generally business is quite straightforward, but it's the people that are the challenge, right?
Managing
And especially
people.
in our line of work, you're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of people on the other end of things. It's always the big challenge.
Oh, it's true. Ultimately, there's a lot of people that you're managing or dealing with. I think one thing I'd like to hear your thoughts on is sometimes the premise for an online coach or a health entrepreneur in the start is extremely different from what it becomes later on, right? I mean, you're going from the gym floor, wanting to move online, it's starting to work, but becoming, let's say, more a CEO, leader of a team, it's a very different premise.
Huge. And there was a shift, don't know how many clients, but there's a shift where your role is still very much a coach. And there was a point in my career as a coach where, again, I'm happy to admit this, things were going really well. We had a lot of clients and I thought, great, I can sit back. I can enjoy a bit of free time. Maybe I can start another business. You know, my ego in my head going, oh, we're crushing this. Let's do something else. And I did. I tried to launch my own supplement company. Tried to do I had a podcast, which was really great at the time, but was spending time on this podcast. And, suddenly my attention started shifting to these other things because that's what our minds do. That our egos are just, hey, we're good at this. What else can we do? I see it happen everywhere as well. And as soon as I started doing that, online business starts declining. Number one, because I think no matter how big you get as a coach, your clients can tell if you're involved in the business or not. So I think no matter how much you scale and how much you grow, you have to be involved in your business. You have to be doing check-ins with people. You have to, or at least video calls with, broadcast messages, whatever it may be, still involved. But I wasn't doing that. And my attention, because it was on these other things, I just was missing things, spending less time taking care of it, and it dwindled. And I had a chat with Christian, and he said, this is your baby. This is your one pillar. You're not even scratching the surface of where it could be. So why are you doing all these other things? Because then everything is just going to become average. And that's not what you want. The human mind you've got only so much decisions and energy in a day. Pour it back into this. This is your bread and butter. This is what you're good at. So then scrapped all that stuff. And I'm glad I tried it because it's a lesson, right? All these things, they're never failures. They're just lessons. Push back to my online coaching. Lo and behold, starts growing again, and because also even just with running a coaching business, there's so much to do with it, the content, there's just so much. So if you're trying to shift to something else, naturally it's going to fall.
You said something interesting there about clients can feel if you're not involved, regardless of size or scale. Because clearly, I mean, you focused your efforts back on your online business at that point. But I'm curious to understand, well, how do you actually navigate that, and what did you mean by it?
So, for example, I had been doing sales calls from day one because I wanted to be the first person that people spoke to who are interested in my business or joining the program. So I stopped doing sales calls. I hired someone to do that. Then within the business, of course, when you scale, you have other coaches helping you do check-ins. You can't check in with, 400 for however many people. So you have coaches come in, but I would still, before I disappeared and went with my ego, I would still check in with as many of these clients as I could. Every now and again, just drop them a video message, speak to my team about them, how are they doing, what are the challenges, come in, send broadcast messages, just be involved, right? Same with my content, talking about fitness every single day, whatever it may be. So that was, when that stopped, I think, they can just sense that you're not there. And it was a big lesson for me that no matter how big you get, take pride in your clients. That's, again, you don't have a business without them. And that's why you're doing it in the first place. And so I just got straight back into doing it. And to this day, still check in with as many of them as I can, still have sometimes catch-up calls if a client really needs them, video calls, etc. But I love it. I absolutely love it. And clients really appreciate it.
Makes sense.
So that was really important not to let that drop.
And there's a double cost to what you mentioned before, right? Because if you're, on the one hand, if you're not too involved in the business, clients feel it. And if you're outsourcing everything, your profit margins in that business start to suffer as well. So it might feel good that, okay, I have this enormous team and everything's going, gross revenue-wise, it might be looking good, but...
Yeah. And I think there's a line where any business that grows, you end up taking a smaller cut, but you have to in order for it to scale, because hopefully it scales so much that even though you have a smaller percentage, overall it's more. But if you're giving away everything and you're not even involved, you don't understand how your business is doing, how the clients are doing, you're not even checking in with your coaches. Like, I really did just sort of peel off. And I think it's probably also because I'd been working my ass off for 2-3 years, and I finally got to a position where I would wake up and I would go, gosh, I don't have to spend 10 hours grinding my ass off. And for the first time in my life, I've got to a point where I've got some free time and I'm still making money without directly working. Yeah. And so again, I think it was just a natural result that was inevitable, that I had to go through an experience and again, learn the lesson before then realizing, no matter what you do, your coaching business is always going to be number one. Coach James Club is number one. Live it, breathe it, sleep it, and take care of it. So that was a huge learning for me.
That makes sense. You mentioned something which shows quite a bit of the business acumen that we mentioned before, right? And it's about finding that sweet spot in the middle and understanding the difference between profit and profit margin. Mm-hmm. As you grow, as you scale, you outsource, your margin might go down, right? But you're still, what is the actual profit? If the business is growing, well, then you're on the right track.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I've never been a numbers guy, but again, learning that those things really do matter and getting feedback every month of what are the unsexy stuff. Again, everyone thinks that being an online coach, it's the working when you want from a laptop on a beach, earning good money, you can drive a nice car and you've got all this free time, but there's so much unsexy work that is behind the scenes that you have to be involved with. And I'm not a money guy, I'm not a finance guy, but I've just had to learn to be involved with that and understand it, because there's just zero upside of not. And the more you can understand even that kind of stuff, the better your business is going to be, because you just have hands on things. You don't have to be controlling everything. And I obviously have accountants and the leanest, the team. What's brilliant about you guys is you give us rundowns every single month of this is what this is doing, this is what this is doing. But, we need to increase our lifetime, and then the leads need to be this. And that is great because it gives you the visual to go away and think, right, this month we need to get more leads in, or this month I need to tell my team, guys, we need to start extending clients for longer and really making them love this program, because that's going to help X, Y, Z. Like any business, it gets to a point where you have to start looking at the numbers. Otherwise, you're just going like in no man's land, just running around with a blindfold on.
So what else is what's your life look like now? Because if we backtrack just a little bit, right? COVID hits, you've moved all in onto online coaching, you're producing content, your business is growing, you're gaining all of these experiences. Like, what else is going on in James's life?
So that was moving from figuring out Carefree James to then business coach. Still a bit of Carefree James because I was still enjoying myself. I was still, largely single and living in London in a flat by myself. The world was my oyster. And then I met my now wife randomly walking down the street in Barcelona. Very crazy love story. And then my whole world shifted with that, because I met the woman of my dreams. She lived in America. I was in London.
Oh, really?
Long distance, all that travel. But then as my business grew and I got more serious with that, the Carefree James had to quieten down, because when you have your own business, you cannot wake up on a Monday hungover and it spills into a Tuesday, because it just knocks you off this. I describe it as like a frequency. You're operating on this high frequency. You have a big night out, poor sleep, you just come off this frequency, and it can take 4 or 5 days to come back up to that level. And that's just time that you can't afford to lose. So the drinking dialed down, the partying dialed down. I was getting more serious with my wife, then girlfriend, and then decided to move to America because one of us was going to have to move. And I've always dreamed about living abroad. Didn't think it was going to be America, but then moved to Nashville, bought a house together, completely change of world and audience and environment, and then had a baby.
So how's that shift been for you? I mean, also business-wise, right? You've grown a business in the same market in the UK. Were you nervous about, uprooting and moving your business to another place, or what?
I was actually excited because I knew the opportunities that lay in the American market. I knew that on the whole, Americans like to spend money and they will happily pay money for service. You look at the tipping culture there. If it's good service, people will tip. You drive to a restaurant, you valet your car because it's convenient, and if it's a good service, you tip. So that was definitely something in my mind, but I also knew it was a completely different kettle of fish. It was a very, very different market, a much bigger market, different kind of content, marketing. Americans, you have to be a little bit more in their face about stuff because, Americans are very high energy, loud, out, Brits a little bit more conservative, reserved. So to stand out, speaking a little bit more out there and loud, although my British accent has helped. I think everyone in America says I sound intelligent, so that's been a skill I haven't had to learn. It just makes me, I could say something probably pretty stupid, and because I'm British, they think, he's intelligent.
You are quite smart, James. There's no need to underplay it.
Yeah, but it was exciting, and I definitely saw it as an opportunity to expand my business and test a new market.
Business James, still hungry.
Yeah, exactly. In a different kind of way.
Right.
But equally, I was also a bit concerned about my UK clients and the time difference, and still allowing them to be checked in with. But luckily, I have coaches in the UK. But then I had to think, right, I probably should get a coach from the US as well, because I need someone on US time zone for when clients need to have questions asked, and it's not a different time zone. So then there was that whole thing, moving business from the UK to America. Oh my gosh, I'm still having meetings with my accountants about what we do, the tax, the this, the that. It is the most, and I don't like numbers. This makes me hate it even more. It is one of the most complicated things I've ever have to do. Even my accountants having to go away and talk with their bosses about what to do. So that's been a bit of a nightmare, but I think all in all, it's been a really positive move. And my client base is now largely American women, and my followers, American women. So it's fun. And Americans are great. I mean, the clients that we have, American people, they're just so get up and go get them. It's amazing. In our group, in our community, the Americans are the ones saying, hey, y'all, let's go today. I've done my walk. What about you? The energy is incredible. Yeah. And that's what I love about that country. They're just so optimistic and positive. It's amazing. And when you have those people as your clients, it makes our job so much fun.
So that's interesting. I mean, you manage both to shift large part of your following as well as your...
Naturally, yeah. Because I think when you're posting in America, it gets pushed out to Americans. Right. And we still have a fair amount of British clients, of course. And I still have English followers and some in Australia, etc. But the American pillars are kind of growing.
Interesting.
More and more.
And you became a father.
And I became a father.
6 months ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is, being a father yourself is the greatest privilege on earth.
For sure.
But it presents its challenges as a business owner. And it was when I have these identities, I found it very difficult in month 2 or 3, because the first month is just, you're just in a baby bliss. I wasn't really working, and you're sleeping the same schedule as your baby who's waking up every 2 hours, and it's just carnage. But once that settles a bit and you get back into a bit more of a routine, I definitely found it very challenging to separate business James and dad James, because I had suddenly this new role, this new responsibility, working at home as well. My wife has her own business and she works at home. So we had to learn to, I told her, to my wife, I said, Shannon, you can't just call up when I'm in the middle of a meeting and ask me to help you change a diaper. Like it's, but because you're at home and you are available, it's that whole thing. And those lines were getting a bit blurred. And only recently have I really learned and discovered that keeping them separate is really important, but not having them compete, because they were competing. Business James would be saying to dad James when I'm with my baby, hey man, we've got work to do. You need to reply to this email. You've got this content to make. You've got these emails to get back to. There's a lot going on, man. And I would be dad James and just a bit stressed, and my mind would kind of be 50% there and 50% here. And then when I was work James, business James, it would be, you're spending too much time working. You got a daughter now. You got to hang out with your daughter. And then I realized that they both actually, rather than competing against each other, they just wanted the same thing. They wanted me to be the best at what I was doing. And for that to happen, I had to completely separate them as much as I could. So when it was business James, I was business James, and that's all I was thinking about for the most part. And then when I was dad James, everything is away and all I'm focusing on is my daughter being present. And that's helped hugely separate the two.
It's actually like compartmentalizing things.
Exactly.
I think when running an online business, and which also necessitates a social media presence, you can basically be on all the time. Right? Which you've been used to now for
and again, going back to whether it's your ego, but there's this thing of being a business owner, which I'm sure lots of people can relate to, is if you're not working, then the business isn't accelerating. It's this weird thing of you think you always have to be doing something. And that just comes from the subconscious safety element. Right. The subconscious feels safe when I'm working because it thinks, he's working. Business is good. We're in control. As soon as I'm not working, subconscious is, I don't like this, man. You know, we work all the time. What are you doing? What are you doing? But actually, it's totally fine. And you have to, especially becoming a parent, but even before that, you have to learn how to, not get rid of that voice, but just say to it, hey, we're good. We're chilling. We're watching some Netflix now, and this is my time to put my feet up. Everything's fine. We'll work tomorrow.
And there's also a bit of a potential identity shift in this, right?
Yeah.
Because, you work in the space that you operate in. You are the face of the business, right? So who you are, is it correctly understood that like who you are can be, become so closely intertwined with the business?
Definitely.
That introducing
Definitely. It's your identity, really, for a long time. And I had a session the other day, a cognitive language session about this with this woman who used to be my physio back in London, and she's qualified as this cognitive behavioral therapist, whatever. And I did a session with her, and it was one of the things we started talking about everything, and we stripped everything back, and then she asked me this question. She said, "So who is James Middleton?" And that question hit me like a ton of bricks. I got very emotional, and I felt like I was this kid in this big room, this empty room, like one of those interrogation rooms, but the room was huge, just this tiny kid, and someone had just shouted into the mic, "Who is James Middleton?" And I felt like naked. I felt vulnerable. Why? And it was this realization that having worked in coaching in this business for so long, that actually, a large part of who I was Coach James and that identity. And you live and breathe it every single day. So when someone says, well, push that aside, who are you? I'm like, wow, damn.
What's left?
Yeah. So I had to do some thinking. Yeah.
Well, talk to me about that. How did that settle somehow? How did you digest that?
I think I'm still digesting
Yeah,
it. It was a few weeks ago. No, I think for me, it was the realization that whilst things are important to you, it's very, very important to not attach yourself to something that you become so dependent on it for your identity, your livelihood, your confidence. Same with training, right? I got injured. This was probably 5 years ago. Did something, I busted my back bad. Couldn't lift or do any training for like 4 months, 5 months, nothing. Yeah. I was all over the shop. My mental health mindset was just shaking on the rocks because for so long it was, I'm James and fitness is my life and it's thing. And that was probably one of the first moments I realized, no, these things are not your entire life. They make up a component of your life. And again, going back to these pillars, they're pillars in your life, but they are not who you are. So if forever, whatever reason, your business disappears tomorrow or you can't train, you have to compartmentalize those things and detach them from your value as a human being. And then I guess you could get really deep and say, well, what's your value as a human being without the things that you're good at and passionate about? But then you just look deeper and then you get back to really the grounding nature and mindset of, well, actually the things that truly matter is who I am as a person, how I talk and make other people feel in this world, and really, you know, who are the people that I love and who are the people that love me for me. And those are kind of, in my opinion, the most foundational things of what really makes up a person. Because, you know, when you strip away all the titles and all the acumens and successes and things, it really just, you know, when you take a naked person, the true character of a person is like who they are there and then and what they carry in here.
An identity that's separate from what you
just
do.
Everything. And look, it's hard because we're humans, so we attach ourselves to things that we pour our lives into and are a big part of our lives. But I think I'm always in the back of my mind thinking, if this all disappears tomorrow, you've got to be okay with standing there without those things in your grasp. And it takes some work, and it takes some self-analysis and digging into the core. But it's been something that I've really worked on and has helped me hugely in finding a nice kind of almost like peace about my life.
And some life lessons, right? Some experiences along the way. What do you think are some of the key experiences that have kind of shaped your moral grounding or your approach to that core of the identity of James?
I think the two big ones. The first is a sad event that happened in my life, which I if I could go back and change, I would in a heartbeat, regardless of how it's made me a better person, not a better person, but made me a more kind of humble, soft person, was when my brother passed away when he was 19. So he passed away unexpectedly. One day there, the next day not. And especially as a parent, my parents, as a brother, you know, losing a parent when they're getting older, or grandparents is one thing, but when it's, you know, someone who's 19 years old, it was a big shock, and that flipped my world upside down. But I was also in the middle of growing my business, right, and managing all of that. So I think that was a turning point in my life where I realized that, gosh, life is so precious. It's so short. It can change at any point. So be a good person. Like, and my brother, he treated everyone like everyone as if they were all on the same page. Like whether you were black, white, gay, straight, you know, tall, small, whatever. Like everyone he just poured love into. And I think for me, I took that and wanted to almost carry that way of being in this world and how he made other people feel. And admittedly, you know, when I was 23, 24, before he died, like I was a bit, like you could call me maybe like a little bit arrogant, or I didn't care about people who weren't in my circle or maybe couldn't serve me. And I look back now and I think that when that happened and that shift, it made me become a much more kind, soft person to the people around me, which goes back to my point of, it's really a lot about life is how you treat other people and how you make other people feel. So make them feel as good as you can, regardless of what you're going through. So that was a big change, and that humbled me a lot.
That's quite a legacy to leave for your brother.
Yeah,
I'd say.
yeah. No, I mean, the lives and it made me realize, because it was whenever people were talking about him, all people would say was, gosh, I remember just how he cared so much about how I was doing, and he made me feel so good every time I saw him. Even if my brother was going through his own, troubles or whatever it was, he would just make sure that everyone around him was happy. So that really helped, I guess, ground me a bit and made me realize the true value of life. When you lose a sibling, you actually, everything else becomes so irrelevant. And again, like things now that used to stress me out, I just don't care. I'm like, I don't care.
There's
like
a different perspective.
It is just so small, and no matter how big it is in your head, most of our problems are so insignificant compared to what can truly happen in your life that can really have an impact. So trivial things now I just don't care about. And I think sadly it has made me like a harder person. I've got a pretty hard, it takes a lot for someone to break me, because you do have to be quite strong, when that happens, and you go through grief, but you do build an armor. But I'm soft under the armor, but you need the armor to protect you.
Right.
So now when people say nasty stuff on the internet, like, I'm like, dude, you have no idea what I've been through. So you can say all you want. It just doesn't bother me. So, I would do anything to have him here. But I think for me, it was trying to see the positives as much as I could after he had gone and kind of continue his legacy. And it gave me a lot of drive as well, because everything I do now, my brother's always in my mind. And it's that, he's always with me, and I feel him and I wear him. This is a bracelet that I gave him for his 18th birthday. I haven't taken that off.
Amazing.
For 6 years, 7 years. So yeah, it's that was a big pivot. And then the second biggest thing is, on a more positive, lighter note, is becoming a father. Yeah. The understanding that you are now responsible for another human being, and suddenly you have a whole new meaning to your life.
Right.
Yeah.
I can second that notion.
Yeah.
You spoke about a form of a coach that you've been working with, or what did you call it again? Yeah,
like cognitive language therapist.
Do you think it's important for coaches to have coaches as well? I mean, beyond, let's say, the business support or financial advisors and these types of things, more of a personal coach?
Yes and no. I think there is always, the reason why I say yes and no is because yes, it's great to just talk to someone you don't know who's not in your immediate life, or a friend, or has a biased opinion about things. I think as humans communicating, they say a problem shared is a problem halved. So just talking to someone about anything really can help. And when it's a professional who understands psychology and understands to ask the right questions, it creates a lot of clarity in your mind about things, which is what I got from her, from various different things that probably I could have solved by myself. But just like people probably can lose weight by themselves, but they get a coach because it makes the process quicker and easier. It's the same with having any kind of therapy. But I'm also, the reason why I say no is that I'm a big believer that as humans, and maybe we've fallen too far into this trap of, everyone has a therapist and everyone talks, but sometimes just talking is not enough. You have to do, and you have to go away and you have to apply those things, and you actually have to figure things out yourself.
Implement.
Exactly. And I think talking is great, but I think sometimes people put too much onus on having a therapist to figure things out, and spending so much time figuring things out, they never actually go away and do and make the changes. So even, for example, growing my business, at one point I thought, shall I hire a business coach who can tell me how to do X, Y, and Z? And I thought I could spend thousands, and there's probably some benefit, but there's also benefit in learning and experiencing yourself and going through it yourself. If I could go back, I probably would pay a business coach to help me not make some of the mistakes that I did. And again, that's where Linus come in. Linus have done a lot of strategy meetings with me and helping me see my business from a different lens and giving me different opinions. Fantastic. Couldn't recommend more. But yeah, I'm 50-50 with
that makes sense.
Figuring out and doing.
Yeah. We were talking about it with the books here as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Reading, we both read most of them here. And at some point you have to get to a point where you actually just do the work.
Yeah, because if you're just reading self-help book after self-help book after self-help book, all you're doing is really just appeasing your ego to be like, yeah, I feel great reading this. If the book closes and you just carry on your life as the same, what's the point? And then if you pick up another book, you're giving yourself the false narrative that you're improving when you're not. But it's great because people, it's the same with a weight loss journey. People lie about stuff and make excuses because it just makes them feel better. It parks the ego and it strokes the ego, which makes us be more okay with the situation. But actually the reality is it's not okay and stuff needs to change. Well,
that's where a coach comes in, right? With accountability and helping people forward. Let's end this off by looking first a bit backwards and then we'll look forward, all right? So from your experience now, being in this space for 6+ years, well, what do you think the industry or consumers, any perspective you'd like to put on it, is understanding better now than they did 5, 6, 7 years ago?
I think number one, you can have a coach who doesn't see you physically and it works. So you can have accountability even if it's through a phone. I think that's really important because lots of people have come to me and said, oh, you don't need a coach. Use ChatGPT. Yeah, use ChatGPT, but ChatGPT will be biased, whatever information you feed it, because it wants to keep, you there and asking questions. ChatGPT is not going to know if you're telling the truth or not. And it's also not going to be there, knocking on your door saying, hey, did you do your workout? No, So I think understanding that you can get help still, not from a physical person one-to-one, but it still be hugely beneficial in the online space. I think secondly, getting help is okay. It doesn't mean you're failing or you can't do it alone. It's actually what the most successful people do in any walk of life. Writers get writing coaches, athletes, professional athletes have S&C coaches, they have shooting coaches, whatever it may be. Therapists have therapists. I have a coach who does my programs. Coaches, it just makes everything that you do more efficient and gets you better results. And yes, it's a cost initially, but the price, I say this on the phone, a little line that I sometimes have used, the price is what you pay today. The cost is what happens by the end of it. And that cost is minimal compared to the benefits that it can give you. I think number 3 is maybe tied into that. Everyone needs some kind of accountability. As human beings, we all operate better when we have someone holding us accountable and checking in. One thing, husband, friend. Another thing, a person who doesn't know you, because you can tell your husband, friend to F off. You can tell your coach to F off, but it's a bit different. You might not get the same response. And then I think the last thing is we live in a world where there's so much information now. We are 24/7 bombarded with information, very different information, conflicting information, which has left people more confused and unsure than ever, which means that people have decision paralysis. So there's so much information that they don't even know how to take the first step, because they might take the first step slightly to the right, to the left. Should I take the first step? Maybe I should go backwards first, and all of that just keeps people stuck, especially when people try stuff and there's a lot of now quick fixes and buy my products and all this thing. So I think people are realizing there are also coaches out there who are just who genuinely care about helping you in the right kind of way and are not trying to sell you some BS or some quick fix. But the sad thing is that's clouded by a lot of, people who are con artists and don't run businesses for the right reasons. So those are probably the key things that I would say maybe people are waking up and realizing. But for me, the biggest thing is just taking the plunge and getting help, because it can be a game changer.
Life-changing.
Yeah.
So tell me one thing. Tell me about what's the thing about the future of coaching or in your business that really excites you?
I think more people becoming aware of online coaching. I still think in a lot of places, people don't know what it is. People don't know how it works. How, like I said just then, how can someone who's in the US when I'm in Australia help me lose weight and build muscle? What? I think there's still huge opportunity in terms of awareness of online coaching, especially because from a cost perspective, it's much more cost effective than doing in-person training. If you have an in-person trainer every single week who's good, you're paying way more money to them than you are for an online coaching. And with the online coaching, you get, the nutrition, the check-ins, the training, the everything, right? I think there's that. I think the second thing is the combination of medicine tied in with holistic approach to fitness. I think for a long time, the two have been kept separate. Right. Medicine is here, training, nutrition, the holistic kind of natural side of things is here. I think the way the fitness space is going now, the two collide and give people the best outcome. For example, GLP-1s, weight loss drugs, with training and nutrition and good habits. The two combined will change millions of people's lives. Whereas previously it was like, ooh, GLP-1s, terrible. That's a shortcut. That's cheating. That's not proper. Or like GLP-1s, just like, no, you just take the GLP-1s, just the drugs. And it was so separate. But the future is medicine and that together, I believe. And I think coaches who are aware of that and take advantage of that will be very successful and will help more people. Linus are already on the train with combining these things, which is epic. So I'm super excited about how we can change even more people's lives with that help. But I think that's going to be a huge piece in the next 2, 3, 4 years.
Amazing. I look forward to following how that goes. And also to having you back at some point, James, to see, because now we've gone through your different phases, the carefree James, business James, and Father James. I know that Father James, Dad James lasts for a long time, but there might be some different ones.
Yeah.
More things that we can talk about at another time without it being necessarily a totally different phase.
Maybe bicycle James in Copenhagen. I need to rent a bike and I want to wake up at rush hour and cycle with all these people.
Find you I feel like I'm first,
helmet. I haven't seen any people in Lycra, but I feel like I'm in the Tour de France.
For sure. Well, James, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks Daniel. Thanks great to chat.
All right, James, welcome to the walk pads.
I can't look at you and walk in a straight line.
That's multitasking. So it's our simulated walk and talk, and what we're going to do is blind rank some different topics in relation to their impact on people's health, happiness, and longevity. All right, so I want to hear your thoughts on that.
This is fun.
A scale from 1 to 10. All right, we'll start with sleep.
10. It is the most effective drug that's not an actual drug, but the most effective drug that it can improve all facets of your life, not just from a health perspective, but everything. It is just the pillar and the foundation for health.
Gotcha. And counting calories.
7.
7. Uh-huh.
Important, but it's not the be-all and end-all to weight loss or weight gain.
Right. Now we're on the treadmills or walk pads. What about getting your steps in?
8.
8?
High. One of the easiest, most readily available, underutilized forms of staying fit and helping burn more calories.
All right. Another thing, community then.
6. I think community is incredibly important for any endeavor that you do. We are humans, we are sociable beings. And I think it can really help uplift, especially from a fitness perspective, feeling like you're a part of something bigger. But I think getting in shape also takes a lot of internal self-work, being alone and doing it.
You're alone in the grind, right? So you got to get it done. Okay, we're going to switch things up a bit. Tell me something, little curveball. Tell me something that you're hilariously bad at.
Anything drawing. Painting. Absolutely atrocious. I used to skip art class and I got in a lot of trouble when I was younger, but I was just terrible at it. So I thought, why am I even trying? I think I'm just not built for drawing things.
I have to tell you this. I draw with my kids every now and then, and I'm the type of person who stopped drawing around, I don't know, 4th grade or something. And the dog that I draw is exactly the same. exactly the same dog as us back then.
I'm sure it's a skill that we could both improve, but I think I just cut my losses early.
All right, so another one. What's a health and fitness trend that you secretly are kind of into? Not necessarily secretly, or something that you're into that no one knows about.
Blue light blockers at night.
Mm-hmm.
Big fan. My wife and I watch our little like wind down time before bed. We always watch an episode of something on Netflix. And I bought these blue light blockers, you know, the orange ones, because I was reading about blue light, which keeps you awake. Mm-hmm. And I swear, I mean, there needs to be more research on it. So this is like anecdotal, but for me, I now wear these and I watch Netflix. As soon as we turn it off, I'm out like a light. Maybe I'm also a man, so we just usually go out like a light. But I think the blue light blockers have helped.
All right. So last one, what's the opposite health, fitness, wellness trend that you secretly or not so secretly despise?
Vibration plates.
Vibration plates?
Yeah. They have just blown up. Apparently, the Google searching for vibration plates is just like 400x'd. Mm-hmm. Nothing that you do on a vibration plate, unless it's for rehabilitation purposes, so injury purposes, nothing you do on a vibration plate outbeats walking. You're better off getting a walking pad than a vibration plate, because walking does everything that a vibration plate will do and more. But I think we live in a world where people like to feel something, and we're so stimulated all the time. Walking isn't enough for people. They need to be jiggling around to feel like something's happening.
Gotcha. Thanks a lot, James.
Thanks, Daniel.